Hello there, welcome to the RetroSaber Podcast, where we always take the high ground. Haven't done one of these for a while. In fact, I used to do these like once every month, but I then started doing the wrestling ones. They sort of didn't work, and I think they messed up the algorithm a little bit. So I tried to come back to these, but I also know these don't generally get as much traction as an actual video does. I know podcasts aren't for everyone, so I just thought I'd do them every now and then when it took my fancy, and so that's what I've done. I actually looked back to the very first one of these I did, and I'd done my 10 unpopular gaming opinions, and I thought a little way to get back into these would be to ask what your unpopular gaming opinions were. So I did, and a few of you sent me some really cool messages, comments, with your unpopular gaming opinions. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take a look at them. We're going to see who posted these, and I'm going to give my views on your unpopular gaming opinions, my thoughts on them. So let's get on with it. Here we go. Let's start with one from Training, Development and Healthcare, A-Train. We call him A-Train. And he says, the end of physical games will be the end of retro gamers. I kind of agree with this to some degree. I think what we're seeing now is, as there is less and less physical media, it seems like a lot of companies are going to they're trying to veer towards almost like the streaming service model. Yes, you can buy games, but we really want to move away from letting you own a disc. And if you do own a disc, there's not really a game on it, just a link to download it. But a lot of the times, the best games they're all there on streaming services. Nintendo on the Nintendo Switch has those. If you pay for the subscription, here's this entire back catalogue of games. What comes with that, though, is the desire to slowly stop letting you have those games anywhere else. Because if you can buy them, then why would you want to stream them? So I think we'll see more and more of that kind of situation. Now, in some ways, that means maybe it'll open up the avenue to more people playing retro games. But I do agree, it might actually mean the end of retro gamers from the perspective of the people that kept the consoles and kept the games, because they won't be a game to keep. And your console without the online and the ability to download this games, it's going to be really tricky to do. So I think the type of retro gamers we have now that keep a hold of all this physical media, they go back and keep the actual cartridges and the old discs and collect them, and go back and play those old games, it won't be the same. And unfortunately, as things change, they will change and tweak the games, take things out that are no longer considered okay or popular, or that they lose the rights to. So you won't have that physical version of the game to be able to keep the original piece of art in its first form. So your unpopular opinion, whether it's popular or not, I kind of agree with. Up next, it is the legend that is Raza is Retro that says RPG games, not my cup of tea. Okay, so first of all, I will say, it very much depends. RPG games is very much like it's a massive sort of genre that can mean some very, very different things. I remember seeing Mario RPG or Super Mario RPG, and I never got the chance to play it, but I loved Mario games, and I was like, yeah, any Mario games down for me. And the idea of it sounded really cool, but I just really struggled to get into it. There's been some RPG games that I have kind of liked, but they were RPG games with a lot of action in as well, and they were very much specific genres. And some people also would probably say, that's not really an RPG game. I think RPG games are a very niche thing, and I can get it. I still think some of them can be fun, but there has to be something, a hook, that brings you into it. Like, there's a Star Wars one, and it's got a really good story and really good characters. I like Star Wars, so it's gonna have a chance with me. But as a game style, it's not gonna be the first thing that appeals to me. It's not for everyone, but at the same time, and again, you're absolutely saying it, they're not for you. So it's not an unpopular opinion that you're saying they're the worst thing ever, because for a lot of people, that's exactly what they're looking for in a game. So I get that. But I will say I totally understand this. They are such a niche thing. They are not something that is easy to pick up and play. You've got to be able to commit time to an RPG game. You've got to really get into it and really enjoy every moment and have the time to commit to it. You can't just pick up and play in that sort of easy get into way, at least in my experiences. But again, it depends on levels, and I will never tell someone that a type of game is not a good type of game. Just nothing. Which, in fairness, Razza, I know that's what you're saying. So, and I'm going to say, I don't know how unpopular of an opinion that is, because I think a lot of gamers, RPG games, aren't for them. So, yeah. Okay, Muppet Features says Sonic is better than Mario. Ooh, now that one might be an unpopular gaming opinion. It might not be, though. I know Sonic does have a big fan base. For me personally, I would say that's an unpopular opinion. Let's break it down. What has Mario got over Sonic? He is the original. He was around and had a full catalogue of successful games before Sonic even started, at which point Mario took it to the next level. Pardon the pun. His kart games are better. His spin-off games are more and better. Heck, the Sonic versus Mario at the Olympics, guess which console they're on? The Nintendo one, which means Mario was more successful. There is one field where I would argue Sonic is better than Mario. Maybe two. One, he's certainly a much more edgy, cool design. I'll give him that. Two, movies. The 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies are better than the 2 Mario movies we have. No question. Hands down. But in every other area, Muppet Features, that's a hot take. That's a dark one. Nothing against the Sonic games, but to say better than Mario, that's a bold one. I respect the nerve on you for that one, Muppet Features. Well, these two could not be more perfectly placed, and yes, I may have deliberately put these side by side. Hardly Quinn says the Sonic the Hedgehog games are actually overrated. That is an unpopular opinion. That will be a damn unpopular opinion, and I know a lot of people will not like that. I agree, and I'm guessing you've said that based on some of my retro reviews, because I gotta be honest, I don't actually feel like there's that much skill involved in the Sonic games. You push forward, and then 90% of what happens is just going through tubes and going really fast. Yes, you might have to push jump at just the right moment, but you cover half the map, half the level without actually doing anything. There's no room to stop and wonder and explore. And if you actually want to take your time and look around the level, the game actually punishes you for it. They're pretty in a colourful sense, but in a much more like a psychedelic, drug-fueled episode. The Mario games are genuinely a much softer palette, much more beautiful. But I know this isn't about comparing it to Mario. I know Muppet Features comment was more that, but this is just as a game. I think, yeah, I'm thinking, and I am going to talk specifically just about that sort of Sonic to Sonic 3, that those main games, I suppose, those ones. I would say those games are overrated. I think, there was a massive marketing aspect to it. There's a massive nostalgia element to it. And just loads of love. And, don't get me wrong, people enjoyed the game. And they were good. But to put them on par with the games like, Super Mario Brothers. Now, it's not a comparison, but that level, because that's what Sega pinned it as. I would say if we put it on that level, that they are considered in that echelon of the gaming greats, I think that's overrating them. I wouldn't even say they are in the top 5. I would not put a single Sonic the Hedgehog game in the top 5 platform games. I would even argue that I could maybe find 5 better platform games, not including Mario, before Sonic gets a look in. There's an unpopular opinion for you. I've taken your unpopular opinion and I've added mine to make it even more unpopular. There's going to be so much hate down below in the comments, and I'm fine for it. I'm okay with it. That's the whole point. It's an unpopular opinion. So I want to hear, if you tell me, man, that's a ridiculous take. There's no way that there are 5 better platform games outside of Mario games than Sonic. That's fair enough. Hell, if you want me to do that, if you actually want me to do that as a list or as a future podcast, let me know in the comments below. I will give that a try. This one is a doozy and comes from PJ Venom. Bear with me, I'm going to probably break this one down into a few bits. So first of all, I'm sure I've loads, but none massively spring to mind. Dude, it's always the way when you got to try and get something to come to your mind in the moment. Venom Snake's twist in Metal Gear Solid, the Phantom Pain was brilliant. So, full disclosure, I've never actually played any of the Metal Gear Solid games, or at least not properly, so I really can't comment. I don't know why that's an unpopular opinion. I'm guessing that's something a lot of people didn't like. Yeah, I briefly tried one of them. I think it was I borrowed a friend's PlayStation. I'm assuming it was, well, the one I had anyway was on the original PlayStation. I borrowed a friend's PlayStation, and she had Metal Gear, one of the Metal Gear Solid games on it. I think it was the first one, I'm assuming. And I had a brief go of it, but there was this library of games there, and I was just flying through them off and on. So I only got a brief look at that one. And then we have a sort of second comment here. Good, in little sort of inverted commas there. Nature protagonist pronouncing values of freedom and justice, etc., need to be more ethically consistent with all sentient beings. Freedoms, rights, nothing worse than a righteous dialogue moment while dining on literal innocent vulnerable victims' bodies, for example. So to give full context, PJ Venom is vegan, not just a vegan, but he's very much an advocate and makes this very clear on his channel. So I'm putting that out there to give it clear context as to what this is referring to. Bringing it into a sort of a general context, I agree on that. I actually, in general, I don't like characters in games to be overly sort of righteous and virtuous anyway, in that stance of, taking that, ironically enough, for my channel, given what my outro is, that moral high ground. First of all, everyone in every country, in every culture, has different things that are ethical. In some countries, it's perfectly fine to have a gun in the house. In other countries, it would be considered, what the hell are you doing? And that's not a criticism, but there are a lot of things that are deemed, in some religions and beliefs, it is absolutely required that you eat meat and do it in a very specific way, which other people would deem, not just cruel, but really barbaric. And it's perspective. And I think when characters in games take stances and are like, oh, it's this, and it makes it harder to relate to. I think it's fine for characters to be characters, and they should be right to their character and their time. I don't like seeing characters being portrayed with modern values in a time where that wouldn't have been the case. But I also like it when games are willing to give us as the character some leeway. One which I'm sure PJ Venom would love, in the AEW Fight Forever game, it's a wrestling game. Because quite a few of the wrestlers in that company that are major wrestlers in the company are vegan, there's an option as you play where your wrestler goes to the gym. One of the things you do is you go to a restaurant and order food, and that's how you replenish your strength. And you can actually choose for your character to be vegan and only be presented with vegan options on the menu, and that's what they eat. So it allows your experience as the gamer to be appropriate to you and what you would like to see, without going against what that would mean. There's nothing that you go, but that doesn't make any sense. But it just makes sense for that character, for the character you're playing and how you're playing them. So I think that helps. And then the last part says, also, I stick to my guns on not letting people beat you in games. A hollow victory is no victory at all. Dude, I could not agree with you more. Not just video games, board games, sports, anything. I do not let people win. I do not care if you are 3 or if you're in your 80s. I will give people an advantage. I will happily say, go on, you pick that fighter because they're way better, and I'll pick this weak one. I'll go this rubbish team and you go that good team. I'll give them, look, I'm going to give you a 5-goal head start. I will give people that. But once I start playing, I'm playing my best. And if you're going to beat me, you got to beat me. If you don't, you ain't gonna. It's that simple. And I'm not a sore loser. I'm competitive, but I'm not a sore loser. If I lose, I'm fine with that. In fact, if I'm showing someone how to play a game and they end up beating me eventually, I'm over the moon because I know I've done my job well in showing them what to do. I'm usually quite proud, and then that also makes me want to get better. But I can't let someone win. People, you gotta let them win. He's only little. No, the only way they will learn and the only way they'll get better is if you make them experience losing. And then they want it, and help them get better. Show them how you did the moves you did. If you're just going to sort of go, I'm not telling you, nah, you're going to lose again, that's just being a douchebag. But if you can actually show them how they can get better and enable them to do that, I'm all for that. I'm totally on board with you on that one. We are wrapping up with my very good friend and nephew, the Gaming Lord 04, who says, Devil May Cry is better than Resident Evil. Now, I'm pretty sure you don't actually mean this, although I do think there's maybe a bit that you, Devil May Cry is maybe your true love, than more so than Resident Evil. And I will say for anyone, Gaming Lord 04 loves both of these games. In fact, check out his channel. Me and him are literally doing a playthrough on Resident Evil 5 right now. But as an opinion, first of all, I will say this is probably unpopular. As a franchise, Resident Evil is so much bigger, has so much more depth and lore to it. Although Devil May Cry is currently experiencing a bit of an uptake in that it's currently got its Netflix animated series on there. But let's break it down. Whether this opinion is taken seriously or not, how much credibility, is it unpopular? I would say yes. But let's see what credibility it's got. Game-wise, Devil May Cry is a simple /hack game. That's all. There's a little bit of puzzle involved and stuff like that, but it is basically a slash and hack game. It's the modern day equivalent of your Golden Axe or something, but on a far bigger scale. Whereas Resident Evil has a lot more depth and nuance to it. Both have amazing audio. I'm not even going to split it on that. Different, but amazing. Visuals, depending on the era, I think Devil May Cry sort of started in the PlayStation 2 era, whereas Resident Evil very much experienced its initial days on the PlayStation 1. But visuals can be, I would say they're a lot more spectacular in Devil May Cry, but a little bit more shallow as well, whereas they're a lot more subtle and nuanced, but carry a lot more depth to them in Resident Evil. Overall gameplay-wise, there's so much more to Resident Evil. Although there's some Resident Evil games that I'm not as fond of, but they've got so many of them as well. It's hard to argue. Outside of that, Resident Evil's got so many movies, series. Most of them are crap, though, aren't they? I would say Devil May Cry's TV show, its animated show, certainly gives it a sort of a bit of a boost in percentage wise. If you added up pros and cons, Devil May Cry has got one solid animated show. Resident Evil's got some very good animated movies as well, but the other movies and that Netflix monstrosity Abomination certainly drags it down. But overall, yeah, I think Resident Evil's substantially better than Devil May Cry, but there is absolutely space for both of them, so there's that. But definitely a fair unpopular opinion, mate. And that is the end. They are the unpopular opinions that were commented on a post I put up on YouTube. What I will say though, if you've watched this, if you've listened to this, throw some of your unpopular gaming opinions down below as well, and I will make sure they get used. I will, even if I just do a quick addition type episode, I'll make sure they get seen. I will say as well, by the way, I'm aware this is going to be the 19th RetroSaber podcast, which means the next one will be the 20th. Nice little anniversary one there. If you have any ideas of something you would like me to do on a podcast, I mostly watch podcasts around sports, like wrestling and, football and stuff. So the idea of trying to do a podcast for gaming, I was a bit like, well, there's not as much in the way of updates and particular themes to discuss. So I wasn't really sure which direction was the best way to take it. So I know I'm at some point certainly going to be doing a podcast alongside Razza is Retro, where we look back at our time doing that Street Fighter series, which was really, really enjoyable. We're going to be thinking a lot about that and what else we could do in the future. So that'll be definitely one. But if you've got ideas you'd like to see in these podcasts, please do let me know. I also want to give a big thank you to literally all the people that posted these opinions for me to talk about. You've really helped make this podcast, this episode. So I really appreciate it. And until next time, thank you and take the high ground.